still the balance, and there's still a reason that both of you are together, right? To find the balance, because God knows that together you're better than separate, right? You become a better being, a better parenting system, right? A better, you become more celestial and more exalted together than you ever could by yourself.
Welcome to another episode of Saints in the South. So this is our Linger-longer. We're going to talk about some things, what's going on in the world, what's going on with the prophets. So we're happy to have you with us.
Mm-hmm.
So let's
some refreshing topics.
Hopefully. Yeah, what do you think about I think Joe's got some world news. What do you say, Joe? You want to tell us what's going on in the world right now?
We're all from the South. We're all from the South. We got fear people and we're not afraid to stand our ground.
Yeah, this could be interesting. Could get people fired up. We'll see how this goes. But I thought it was interesting, so I thought I'd bring it up. There was a UN report. That's an interesting source. A UN report that was on the violence against women and girls. And buried in this report, I'd say buried, and it was in this report. It revealed that more than 600 female athletes have been beaten by male competitors in women's sports, and female athletes also lost about 900 medals to males identifying as females.
Wow.
So,
no duh.
Where's all the feminists?
Freaking duh.
Where's all the sports? Yeah, where's all the sports, the leaders in sports who've been saying for a while now, equal pay for these female athletes, and all this should be treated equally and all these things. And now you've got 900 medals have been taken away from women and given to males who are identifying as women. Wow. Where are those people speaking out for these poor girls and women?
Yeah, and it's a shame that it's such a minority. Like Riley Gaines is a big one right now. That's a big advocate for women's sports, and there's a handful of people that are standing up to protect women's sports. But it should be everybody. Why is it not everyone?
Sure. That's my point is, not long ago, there was a lot of noise about equal pay and stuff like that. And when the male events are bringing in millions and millions of dollars and the female events are bringing in $500,000, and they're saying we should get paid just as much as those guys. Right.
Yeah.
No.
And so I'm just saying it sounds like crickets.
Oh yeah, and another thing is, especially when it comes to college sports, that's the one that really confounds me because of Title IX. Because Title IX is federal law. Yeah, Title IX was passed as federal law to make sure that women were allowed to play sports, that women could have their own sports teams. Any college or university that receives any kind of federal funding by law has to have teams where women can compete against women, with women, women's only sports. And so that's federal law. So how are we getting around Title IX is what I want to know. How are we
you're seriously not asking, right? You're seriously not asking. Yeah.
Well, the thing is,
because of our current administration.
It is a flagrant violation of Title IX.
Well, it's okay. It's okay, because if you're running the government and you disobey your own laws, it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
Right. That's the real challenge these days, is when you have laws that are being ignored, but then you have things that used to be social mores that are essentially being criminalized. Mm-hmm. So, like pronouns or whatever, just for using the wrong word, your life could be wrecked.
Yeah.
And that's not illegal. There is freedom of speech, but then all of a sudden you've lost your job, you've lost your, whatever, potentially in certain scenarios or whatever.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you could be a sanctuary city and ignore federal law. You could do this, this workaround on the Title IX thing and no problems. And those are actual legal issues.
Exactly.
But no.
And that's probably the thing that initially kind of skyrocketed Jordan Peterson into the spotlight. When he was still just a professor at the University of Toronto, he openly protested against Canada's Bill C-16, which mandated pronouns. And he made the argument that, okay, there are times where there's things that we're not allowed to say. Like everybody knows, you can't just yell fire in a crowded theater. There's certain things that you're not supposed to say. But he made a good point that there is zero precedent. There has never, ever been a single incident in the Western world where a Democratic or Republic government has mandated what you have to say, that you do have to say these things, or you can go to jail. There's a lot of them that he could tell by talking to them. In all of his years, his education years as a clinical psychologist, there's a lot of them that he could tell they're just wanting attention. And he said he refused to give into that. I'm not going to bow to those that just want attention, that are just going to demand that I say certain words, in order to give them power.
Right. The way it impacted him is very different as a clinical psychologist than the way it impacts, your average Joe. So.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know about that.
So yeah, we had the last time I got to see Peterson lecture live. My wife, she got me the meet and greet tickets and the whole package for Christmas. It was the best gift ever. Oh man, I loved it. So I took me and my buddy Rick, the one that actually first introduced me to Peterson, and we were at the meet and greet, and there was a question and answer, and I was a little disappointed that I never got to ask a question, because that he doesn't have time for everybody. So there's just, if you have a question, you shoot up a hand and he'll pick people at random. But there was another individual there that was in the exact same position that I am, career-wise, who pretty much asked exactly the same question that I wanted to pose.
It's interesting that you both had the same question.
Yeah, it was. And he was a social worker as well, has a master's degree in social work and was licensed and was working as a therapist. What
was the question?
Okay,
you buttered me up, man. Put some jam on it.
Here's the question. I work in a crisis unit, and he said the thing that he has noticed is that when people come in with any kind of delusion, like if somebody comes in, like I've literally, this is no joke. There is a woman that claimed she was Cleopatra. Not just her name is Cleopatra, but she was the Cleopatra from history, and believed it. And so when we encounter people who are experiencing delusions like that, our job is to help them with, through various techniques to kind of to regain their footing in reality, to be able to regain their footing and their stability, and to be able to understand and start to see where their thoughts are delusional. There's reality testing, and there's lots of different techniques you can use. But he said there's one exception. When someone comes in claiming to be the opposite sex of what they are,
you can't.
Not only are we not supposed to treat them the way that we've been trained, the way that all of our education has taught us, we not only are we supposed to not treat them, but we're supposed to do the opposite. We're supposed to affirm them without question. And the thing is, somebody like Jordan Peterson, obviously, he has a lot of he has power. He can buck the system. But and this guy, once again, just like me, he was like, what is your advice for me? Because he said, I want to speak the truth, and I want to be honest, and I want to help
treat them like a patient.
And he basically, in a matter of speaking, said, look, I'm willing to sacrifice myself if I have to, but what do you recommend? And Peterson, it was really interesting. He kind of kicked back in his chair and he thought really hard about it for a few minutes. And the condensed answer was that people like us don't have the power that he has right now. We're not Jordan Peterson. We can't just say this is not right, because we'll just lose our jobs. We'll lose our license, and then we'll have to be flipping burgers at McDonald's with 10 years of college. So basically he said, for right now, you might just have to do whatever you have to do.
Yeah.
But he recommended for people in our position to keep very detailed notes of what we are witnessing and our interactions with the clients, and keep track of how the way that we're instructed to treat people contradicts what we would consider best practices, in treating people. And, at a certain point, we can hopefully be in a position to bring up our concerns in a way where we have lots and lots of documentation, and and where it's not just saying, I'm not going to do this thing you want me to do. It's okay. Here's my education, and here's my experience, and here is all the cases that I've dealt with. And here's the reasons why I feel like the way that I was instructed to treat these individuals is not in their best interests and is actually harmful. Okay.
Next. What's next?
All right. Let's move along. Let's talk about, I'm going to kind of combine church news with what the prophets are saying. This week, Elder David A. Bednar of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints encouraged young adults to use technology as a tool for righteousness during a live Instagram broadcast on Wednesday, October 23rd, which is today. So Elder Bednar, apparently, I didn't know this was happening, but he apparently did a live Instagram broadcast in which he encouraged young people, young adults, particularly to use the technology that they have for righteousness. And it says, the story says, holding up his mobile phone, he said, quote, "These digital devices are tools. They are neither good nor bad. It depends on how we use them." And Elder Bednar gave 2 ways to better discern the truth in social media and not fall prey to misleading or untrue information. Number 1, he said, the spirit of discernment through the power of the Holy Ghost. Number 2, quote, do your homework. You can verify, you can validate, you can do the research behind what was written, he said. That will put you in the position where the Holy Ghost can help you discern the truth. You'll be guided to know the accuracy of the information and the intent of the person who presented it. So I thought it was really, really good advice. I thought it was really interesting that Elder Bednar did a Instagram live today that I had no idea was happening. And he gave some really, really good advice to not just young adults. He was gearing it toward young adults, but I think it's relevant for all of us. And I also felt like it's not just cell phones. I feel like social media and the internet in general. And the reason this stuck out to me is because I feel like what we are doing right now is following through with Elder Bednar's counsel, is where we are using the technology that we have at our disposal to try to spread righteousness as a tool for righteousness. Try to spread goodness, try to put some truth and some light out there in the world. And that's what it's all about.
These smart devices can be good or bad. They're just tools in your hands. So let it be your Leophona and teach you and take you in good paths.
There you go. That's right. Your Leophona.
That's right.
Can I get some knee fries with that?
Yeah, you can.
How about some Tiankum tots?
Oh, that sounds tasty. Some chili and cheese.
All right. So that's all right for that. Let's keep on moving along.
Okay, I think the last one is parenting tips. I've been thinking a lot about that, and been watching a lot of podcasts and videos and stuff that come through on my feeds and stuff. And I'm really what's the word I'm looking for? I'm really
awesome.
No, I'm not awesome. I can't think of a fancy word. I really
I don't know. I think you're pretty awesome.
I really feel good. It's heartwarming in a sense of all these Christian people, regardless of color, regardless of race, regardless of ethnicity, regardless of country, are coming forward and not afraid to talk about Christ anymore, and not afraid to call a spade and right is right and wrong is wrong. And like we were talking about earlier, where as Satan's forces gather and become stronger, so do the Lord's. You'll see these divisions start to widen, right? Mm-hmm. There won't be you won't have an opportunity to be in the middle anymore. The division will be so drastic, you will have to choose. And by not choosing, you will default to the side not on the Lord. And it's very heartwarming to see all this coming forth and the things that they're talking about. And one thing that I noticed that we've talked about a lot in the church, but not so much outside the church, is now being talked about outside the church, and that is consequences. Taking ownership of your consequences. And I'm seeing this more and more, where parents and people are saying, stop trying to protect your kids from consequences, because you're doing them so much harm. If they don't understand consequences, they're never going to grow. You can't expect them to develop and learn and be ready for the world when you block and take away all the bad things, when we prevent them from consequences, or you prevent them from anything bad. Now, I'm not saying you go throw them in the middle of the road and say good luck. But what I'm saying is, if they made a choice and did something wrong, let them live with the consequences of that choice, just like you would let them live with the consequences if they made a good choice. Let them live with the good consequences of that. And it's I see this more and more, and people talking about it, how we've really messed up this generation that's coming up, because we come in and try to be helicopter parents and lawnmower parents, and not just parents, right? So this goes beyond parenting tips, but the administrators and teachers with and without school, and coaches and athletes and movie stars and pop singers. It just all this that that you can do whatever you want and ignore the consequences because there are no consequences. It just isn't true. And as you see people own themselves and their own actions, and it's not throwing that to someone else and putting that blame somewhere else, you see them start to mature and become incredibly intelligent and gifted and Christ-loving people. And it's neat to see this shift, this change in this mentality of we got to take away all of the pain and bad from our kids because we want them to grow up without all that. Is that what the Lord did for us?
Yeah.
No, and he doesn't put us there and doesn't say, I hope that car runs over you when you make a bad choice. That's not how the Lord works. But if you pull back if you have a bow and arrow and you pull back that arrow and you release it, nothing on God's green earth is going to stop that arrow. That's the consequence of letting it go. And it will hit something, right? The same with our words, the same with our actions. you know, the hurt that we can cause in our families or to our spouses, to our kids, the hurt that we can cause to men, the hurt that we can cause to women. We're all in this together, right?
Yeah.
And the thing is if you ignore consequences here, it's not just going to affect them, it's going to affect everyone. We all have to deal with the ignoring of consequences. So go ahead, Kenny.
I think a lot of it has to do with the epidemic of fatherless homes to a large extent, because men and women have different temperaments and fill different roles for a child. And women, mothers, tend to be by nature more nurturing, and they're the ones that, by nature, their instinct is to protect their children, which is great. Whereas fathers are more, their instinct is more to kind of throw the kid out there and get them ready for the world. So there's a balance there between the mothers and the fathers. And something I've been seeing a lot that is really encouraging to me, and I don't know what exactly is driving it, but I know there's a lot of male influencers out there who are really pushing like positive masculinity and positive fatherhood, and it is primarily Black men that I'm seeing.
And being positive of being a man.
Yes.
And it's okay. Not only is it okay, if you don't want a man, something's wrong with you. And, and one of them that I saw, Kenny, was this guy was talking about, he was having a conversation with the woman, and they're like, I want this and I want that. He's like, now, first of all, he said, now hold up, I'm sitting right here. There's no need to yell. So you can bring it down a couple notches. I'm sitting right here. You can tell me what you want without yelling.
Yeah.
And then it's like she was going on about this and that and the other. And he goes, what you want is you want everything. You want to be able to come at me like a man without any consequences. He said, my friends don't even do that. If they come up to me like you're trying to come up to me right now, someone's going to get hurt. There's going to be a fight. And they already know that. So they don't approach me like you're approaching me right now. Yeah. You want to be able to come at me like a man, but you don't want me to lay hands on you.
Like a man, yeah.
Like a man, right? And you're right, Kenny. I'm seeing more of that coming forward, and I just applaud it. Because for so long, it's like, the society was putting down being a man and masculinity, and this is so terrible, and blah 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 blah.
Yeah. I think a big part of it is that you've already touched on a bit, is this kind of stepwise learning. So if you let your kids at a very young age experience pulling back the bow and arrow, and learning the consequences of shooting in the house, maybe they break a vase or something like that. They learn those consequences at a much younger age, at a much lower step. Now, if you prevent them from learning that there, perhaps it's a real bow and arrow and someone gets seriously injured.
Yeah.
But then if you prevent that from happening there, perhaps it's a firearm even later. You know what I'm saying? And so that's how we all learn. And we learn the same thing with our words as we do with those types of things. That you learn at a young age. You throw one too many insults at your friend and it's no longer funny and he punches you in the nose.
That's right.
You kind of learn there's a line there and you don't cross that line, right? And so, I'm very much with you on that there's this kind of accountability that's starting to come back around and
very refreshing.
And the balance.
Yeah. And the thing that I noticed as well is that because a lot of these parents are to the point where they're saying, I don't understand, my child is 40 years old and they still live at home. Like, could it be because you babied them and you didn't prepare them to go out on their own? I mean, could it be that you took away all of the experiences from them that would have forced them to get up and get off their duff and go do something and make something for themselves,
Time to cut that umbilical cord.
That's right.
Yeah.
There's a quote There's a quote from Major Payne I'm thinking of, but I'm not going to share it right now.
I know that quote. Well,
so we'll just leave it at that.
Solid parenting advice.
That's right.
I think there was something else I was going to mention that you touched on, Joe, and it's the thought has left me. Could
just
be
the
because
stepwise, the kind of stepwise learning, maybe. Is that?
Well, I know, when my oldest son was little, every time he got hurt doing something stupid, I'd say, "You learned a valuable lesson today, didn't you?"
Well, I will say,
he hated that.
Hopefully it'll come back to you, Michael. But I will say, when Kenny was talking, dads being more of like tossing them out and into the world or whatever, immediately the thought of John Wayne in Hondo teaching that kid how to swim came to my mind, where he just throws him into the river. Yeah, he's like, just reach out in front of you and grab a handful of water and pull it back towards you. You'll make it. And, the mom's freaking out. And anyway, that came to me. But then the other thing was an example of that stepwise, real life example. When we first moved to Jacksonville about 20 years ago, they were at the time having a discussion going on in the Duval City schools about paddles in schools, paddling, students being paddled by teachers. And I remember the word they used was, it's barbaric, like how it's so barbaric. How do we still do this type of stuff? Get those paddles out of these schools. So cruel and barbaric. And so they I don't know, they took a vote or made a decision. They had a town hall, whatever. They finally decided no more paddles in schools. It's too barbaric. Very soon thereafter, maybe in the same decision, they introduced metal detectors to the schools.
Yeah.
And security guards with tasers.
Right.
And so, you fast forward about 10 years later, after a couple kids had to be tased and handcuffed and put into police cars. And guess what their discussion was? How are we still doing this? It's so barbaric to have police officers with tasers. Yes. Yeah. We're tasing kids in schools. How barbaric. And we should get the tasers out of the school. And so then I say, what does that leave you with now? You're saying that their actions have to reach the level of an actual armed police officer pulling a loaded weapon on them and potentially using it. Before there's an interdiction into their actions. Because
the teacher's not allowed to do anything.
Correct.
They're supposed to stand there and take it. Bull.
That's right. And so that's what I mean by this stepwise thing. By preventing punishment at the lowest level, you've now allowed things to escalate to the highest level before there's ever an accountability.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so I remembered now. And it wasn't something Joe said. It was actually something Kenny said. Yeah, I know. I'm sorry.
That's it. I quit.
Kenny was talking about primarily the man's role and primarily the woman's role. And Kenny and I disagree on this, and it's still okay because I love Kenny and Kenny loves me, and we're still friends, right? So
we've had
disagreements on this, and we probably always will. But it doesn't matter. I still like Kenny, and Kenny still likes me, right? So, but to me, I think it's a gift. It's a gift from God that we marry our opposite. Because let's say there is a man that tends to be more nurturing and a woman that's wanting to throw the kids out. Those two are still going to find each other. You're still going to have that opposite in the home, which to me is so God sent because you need the balance. So even if we have some listeners out there that are female that say, well, I'm kind of the one that wants to throw them out on the street. My husband's the softie. It's still fine. It's still fine, right? But you still find that balance.
Yes,
there's still the balance, and there's still a reason that both of you are together, right? To find the balance, because God knows that together you're better than separate, right? You become a better being, a better parenting system, right? You become more celestial and more exalted together than you ever could by yourself. So,
amen.
That's just what I was going to point out.
Agree wholeheartedly.
Because my wife's the one that wanted to throw him out, and I was the softie that, oh, no, you stay here. I love all my daughters so much. They can stay with us forever. And my wife's like, heck no, get them gone.
There you go.
I was the softie. But anyway, it's good. It's good that we marry our opposites and that we embrace the differences instead of trying to change each other.
Yeah.
When you embrace the differences and you stop trying to change each other, the marriage becomes so much more complete and wholesome. It becomes more like what God intended.
That's right.
Well, you know, this is a whole other discussion, but that also translates up to a societal level as well. We need to have differences of opinion, and we need to be able to voice differences of opinion within our communities and within our countries. And that's just like in the home. You know, when you have a balance in the home, then things work better for the children. The children are happier and they're better socialized. And in a country, yeah, when you have people, when you have the ability to express ideas and thoughts and the ability to openly disagree and, you know, throw your ideas out, and it makes for a healthier society.
For
just
sure.
like it makes for a healthier home.
For sure.
Word.
All right.
All right, brother.
Sounds like a good place to wrap it up.
Okay.
So until next time, y'all keep on striving.
Bye.
Amen.
From the south. Come on.